Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, brown hair. Uh, uh, mm,
Not again. This bra flew out the shelves last time, so when it restocked, I put three of them. Something deeply disturbing is happening in Canadian classrooms, specifically in Vancouver area schools. But every Canadian needs to see this to believe it. This isn't about reading or math. It's about teaching kids how to think. It's not even about teaching kids how to think critically or even how to behave properly in a classroom respectfully. No, this is a coordinated campaign funded and sanctioned by public school boards to push a radical gender ideology directly into the minds of 5-year-olds, kindergartners. Look at this. We've obtained exclusive images from a new Westminster kindergarten classroom. Take a look at this. These are from the Kakite Elementary School. At first glance, it might look like a normal classroom. Tiny chairs, colorful floors, kids in sneakers. But look closer and you'll see something shocking. Stickers of the Progress Pride flag, now updated to include trans stripes and intersex symbols stuck to the back of each chair in the classroom. I mean, I would flip the hell out. I'd have an Alex Jones moment like that. If I walked into a classroom and saw my kid sitting in a chair like this with someone's disgusting politics stuck to the back of the chair, wouldn't you? Well, yeah, it's not just politics. It's promoting sexual diversions, like or deviance and perversions. Yeah. How is a child supposed to have any hope of understanding who they are and what healthy relationships are, and what respect for their own body is when they're being told this agenda that says have sex with whoever, whenever, whatever it feels like all the time, and you'll explore yourself, and that's empowerment. And then that leads to depression and disease. Way to go, kindergarten. Yeah, way to go. These aren't just decorations, they're political symbols pushing an ideological agenda, like Natalie talked about, that celebrates sexual deviance. And that's exactly what this is. Mommy, why is there a trans pride flag on my chair in my school? Mommy, am I trans?
oh my God.
I'm kind of told that I should be okay
Shut
with
the fuck up, Clayton.
going and getting part of my genitalia chopped off. Well, obviously, if you're celebrating this, then maybe I want to be it, right? Quite obviously, if this is something the school district is promoting, seemed obvious. Yeah. So why the hell would a kindergartner classroom need these flags? Are 5-year-olds demanding political representation? Are toddlers lobbying for gender identity inclusion?
Yeah.
Of course not. This is not about what the children want at all. This is about what the activists want. Full stop. That's it. And it's not just some rogue teacher, by the way. This is coming from the top. Redacted has received the internal emails. Yes, the actual emails sent out to teachers and staff in School District 40, which includes Vancouver's New Westminster. Here's the email. Take a look at your screen. It outlines Direct Pride Logo Initiative. And now the school district is mandating the placement of pride flags in every school facility across the Vancouver school district. Not just outside the school, inside where the children are. Again, this is coming from the top.
I feel like everybody, like, it doesn't matter, even if you're in a first world country or a third world country, I'm pretty sure that putting a pride flag as a crosswalk is not a good idea because, like, it's disrespectful to walk on a flag, isn't it? Like, yes!
Oh my god.
SLGBTQ plus.
Thank you!
When did this all get added in there? 2SL? When is that? The email praises the redesign of the school's district logo using the Progress Pride colors crafted by a former student, of course, and then brags about how this symbol of ideological conformity will greet every student and visitor in the school they walk in.
Oh, yours will be shipped
For
soon. Put it at the front of the door.
Fucking conformity.
Next to the
This
school.
sounds
Because
bad.
if it's a rainbow-themed government logo somehow makes a child feel safer. And then it doesn't stop there. Here's their... Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and the thing is, like, the kids that don't buy into that ideology, they're the ones that will be punished. Like, you have to be welcoming to everyone but them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then look at this on the district's website. You'll find a full rundown of what's planned for Pride Month in the schools, including events for the youngest students. This is happening during school hours with taxpayer dollars, and without any debate. It's not optional. It's not up for discussion. Parents are simply expected to comply. Let me be clear. No one is suggesting any child should be bullied or excluded. Every child deserves respect. But this
But you
about
shouldn't be
kindness.
giving
This
kids
is
a
about
word for
ideology.
being
This is about the
transgender.
state-backed political
Like-
indoctrination of children.
Not
it's being
everybody's
carried
business
out
other than the
At the
kids
most
going
impressionable
through it.
members
But
of
I
our
don't think
society.
kids really go.
Children.
Can you imagine if every
5-year-olds
girl
for
that
crying
was a
out loud.
tomboy in my
It's no
generation
wonder
got
that
a fucking
change
sex
operations
change?
right now are surging in Western countries. Hell, today, news out of the UK this morning in the Daily Mail. Soaring numbers of children are waiting for specialist gender care on the NHS,
Gross.
with 157 of them under the age of 10.
What?
So business is booming for UK's gender care specialists.
Oh my god.
According to a report, a number of British children are reportedly awaiting gender care appointments as specialists. Toddler-age kids awaiting to have their genitalia basically cut off.
That's so
Over
disturbing.
100 kids under 10 awaiting this treatment. I'm furious about it. This is an education.
Well, actually, no, because if you were going to educate people about what it really means to be homosexual, you might tell them the truth about the things, or a lesbian, or bisexual, or sexually
Bisexual's not
promiscuous. You would
right.
tell them the real risks, such as the risks that come with abortion, such as the risks that come with gay
Right.
sex. There's a lot of risks, actually, for anal sex that we are not told. You would tell the risks of being a lesbian. Do you know that lesbians have the highest rate of STDs? Why does that make sense? They don't sleep with men. Because it turns out they do. All of this, I refer you
What?
to Miriam Grossman's excellent book called You're Teaching My Children What? For all of the real data around sex that they don't
You're
teach.
teaching
So
my
they don't teach
children
that for a
what?
reason. That omission shows that it's plainly political in order to promote healthy sexuality as promiscuity and experimentation. And obviously, that leads to depression.
Well said. Excellent. Well said. And if you question it, you're the problem, right?
Yeah.
You question it, you're the problem. You're the bigot. You're the one who needs re-education.
Right.
You're the problem. So I hope people in Vancouver stand up, demand school district reverse the sick policy. We put messages into the school district. I want to know who signed off on this. Did the parents? So when little children walk in, they've got these trans flags and all of this political propaganda slapped on their children as soon as they walk into the school. Are the parents okay with this? Who signed off on this? People in Vancouver, and of course, this is going to be spreading into massive amounts of other places as well. You guys need to stop it, stand up, and fight for this.
Are you really going to miss this?
We do this training once a year. There's 800,000 to 1 million people who will join us, and it's an opportunity for you at absolutely no cost to figure out how to create a blueprint for what's next in your life. How to be able to be in a position where you could start something or take something you've already got to a whole nother level by learning from the best that exists. Not just us, but to join a group of people we put together for 3 days, 3 hours a day, like a movie each day, but one that'll change your life forever. Click below and get yourself registered. There's no charge, but the experience will be life-changing. You don't want to miss out.
And May 15th through the 17th, show you how to thrive in this new world. Get the blueprint. Click below. We'll see you there. Don't miss it. whether someone is telling you about going no contact with family or estrangement from a family or you're going through it, is that it's not easy. This is not a tantrum about not getting your way. It's a huge decision. Have any of you ever gone no contact with a narcissistic parent or narcissistic family system? And then I want you to reflect on whether or not people got angry at you for doing that. My guess is yes and yes, but let's break this one down. Because this is what happens, right? You go no contact because you just couldn't do it anymore. And not only does a narcissistic parent get angry, so too does everyone else. So remember, no contact is a big topic in this conversation, and it's probably the strongest, heaviest tool in the drawer of the narcissism communication desk. It shuts communication down. You are no longer caught in the confusing word salad morass with them. But it's also not simple, and you may feel a sense of loss and grief, guilt, and even more confusion about whether you did the right thing by going no contact. And when it comes to family, it's the most difficult decision of all. It can take years and even multi decades for people to get to the no contact place with a family. Almost always, when I encounter a person who has gone no contact with a family, I know that this person has gone through years of hell, years of figuring out different ways of being in their family, of saying it, of silencing themselves, of not sharing feelings, of feeling hurt. And that, when it is family, that these cycles had started in childhood, was a slow path of indoctrination, of having to live in subjugation to the parents' needs, of being shamed for wanting to be your own person, and learning that attachment, the lesson you got about attachment, was that attachment means having to give up on yourself to be loved. Now, most people don't get to the point of no contact with their families, but many do. And if you have gone no contact with a family member or a family, odds are that the reason you did that was because you hit a wall. That you'd been hurt so many ways, maybe you got into therapy, and finally in the face of a validating voice, you finally learned that your family system won't change, and you said no more. Maybe you were trying to protect children and vowed that your own children would not experience what you had to experience. Whatever your reasons were, they were yours, and you did it. There's no going no contact, especially in a family, without lots of pushback. Now, the initial reaction, it'd be interesting for you to use the comments to drop the kinds of reactions you got if you did go no contact, but the initial reaction is a severe anger. How dare you? How dare you not show up when I demanded you to? How dare you don't listen to me? How dare you not be available to me? How dare you think you can be your own person separate from me? How dare you deviate from this family's narrative? How dare you don't remain in my service? How dare you think you can be out of my control? Now, they don't say this out loud, of course, but you feel it. And so you face the anger. It's happening. You may not face it directly, but it's there. And you just made one of the most difficult decisions you'll ever have to make, and now have to endure being painted as selfish, cold, unforgiving, angry, ungrateful. And even if your goal was to go no contact with just one family member, the ripple effect is always going to affect the entire family system. And so, while you were attempting to go no contact with one or maybe two family members, even other people who were harmed by these narcissistic family members will be angry at you. Status quo is very powerful, and the manipulations and trauma bonds are powerful. Your attempt to go no contact with one person who didn't just harm you, but had invalidated so many, means that the rage you had become accustomed to had an even greater depth. Now, although you may not be facing their invalidation because you aren't in contact with them, you are in that uncomfortable position of tolerating their distorted view of you and the distorted view of you that they are sharing with other people. Your going no contact from your family can feel like rebellion, like defiance, and not what it really is at the core of it.
pretty much take it all. Fridges, dishwashers, dressers, drawers, couches,
There's
mattresses.
Most people go no contact in an attempt to make themselves feel safe, to cut off the voices that threaten your sense of self. But your parent will be treating it as simple defiance. And it can give you pause and make you wonder, am I just being defiant and rebellious? And then again, play on that self-doubt and self-shame because you don't see it as safety. Now, this can feel really galling because while you are not surprised, you will recall how the narcissistic parent would basically go, no contact, whenever it worked for them. The silent treatment is a universal tactic that is used by narcissistic parents. It might be how they communicated disapproval, disappointment, you not being what they want you to be. The way that narcissistic parents deployed silent treatments when you were a child was part of the endless abandonments that constitute a childhood in a narcissistic family system. And into adulthood, if you are not what the narcissistic parent or family system wants you to be, if you disappoint with them, if you don't say what they want, if you don't be what they want, they will go no contact with you, or extended silent treatment, I guess, but it's for very different reasons. By and large, when survivors of narcissistic abuse engage in no contact, it's very self-protective. It is defeat. It is helplessness. It's a last resort. There's a lot of grief. When a narcissistic person goes no contact, it is often ego, it is punitive, and it's a way to maintain control and power, show everyone who's boss. And when this is done by a parent, it's also unacceptable. Their role is inherently different than that of a child and was far more developmentally impactful. So then that entitled hypocrisy pops up. They have been doing these fits and spurts of no contact for years and silent treatment when it worked for them, so they could punish you as part of their adult tantrum. And this hypocrisy feels really unjust. That they're allowed to go silent, that they could disappear and not respond, and yet when you finally decide to end contact, you're faced with rage and a character assassination. Now, it also gets complicated as time goes on. You may go no contact with a parent or a family member or family system, and then life happens. People get sick, people die. For some reason, you may get pulled in, and some survivors feel shame, like they failed, because you might think that you broke no contact, that you failed at that. It's not true. You didn't fail. But rather, that period of no contact was essential and invaluable to you developing more autonomy, divesting from a system that denied your authenticity, your healing. You've been building up other supports. So if and when you do get pulled back into a family system for some reason, you are now stronger. The healing cannot be stolen back from you, and you can see it clearly. So it can be infuriating, shocking, and feel unjust when after you finally say, enough, I can't do this, I cannot be gaslighted by this system any longer, it's not okay, and I see it, and it's not going to change, and so then you decide to step away, and then you're met with anger that you went no contact, but there were never any attempts by people within that family system to change. It doesn't feel good. The whole flying monkey mess that follows up, that doesn't feel good either. But when you go no contact with your parent, it is your parent. So to do this, to go no contact, brings up primal feelings of abandonment, shame, fear, and grief. The reckoning that nothing you could have done would have made it better since childhood. And that's a heavy weight to carry. To recognize that for you to finally be you, to live honestly as yourself, to show up as you, that the only way that that was going to be able to happen in some cases was that you had to break out of this system, and that recognition hurts. Family estrangement is viewed very negatively, and certainly nobody signs up for it. Everybody just wishes for and craves a loving, attuned, and consistent family. Many of us don't get it. But because the estranger is always the one viewed as a problem, it makes this hard. When people judge estrangement, they do not focus on the abusive behavior that would have led up to someone making a choice to step away from a system, but rather on judging the person who stepped away from the narcissistic system. It can bring up massive feelings of helplessness because you then recognize the perpetual catch-22 you would have been caught in. Either put up with the harms of the relationship by your narcissistic parent, try and try and try, and then give up on yourself and slide into feelings of depression or despair. That's path one. Or make a choice for yourself that was deeply painful and to step away from the system and save yourself and then face the judgment of the world. All of these reasons highlight the injustice that makes healing from narcissistic abuse so difficult, and that healing often means getting okay with people not being okay with us. Right to the end, we want our parents sign off, even if they're narcissistic parents sign off, we want them to sign off on what we do. But nobody does no contact because a relationship is healthy. And the fact is, nobody's going to be okay with you doing it. That's why you're doing it. But when they get really angry at you, after they are the ones who hurt you,
Wayfair vous propose de superbes offres pour la maison tous les jours. Si superbes que vous vous demanderez qu'est-ce que j'ai fait pour mériter ça? De bonnes affaires. Voilà ce que vous avez fait. Les offres de Wayfair sont si belles que vous risquez.
remember that grief will always be at your side and that you didn't get here casually. Remember that. The child in you who was shut down when you tried to be you will appreciate it. No contact is never easy, least of all with a family. And again, it is that whole idea of estrangement that we are much more likely to pathologize the stranger and not the people who are behaving badly in a relationship. It's injustice wrapped in hypocrisy, tied to the gaslighting bow. It's very painful, but many, many people are not ready for the level of intense rage that they face when they step away from a narcissistic relationship and are struck by absolute hypocrisy of a parent that had no problem with silent treatments and pulling away and even abandonment, being enraged when their child, adult child, doesn't respond to them exactly when they want. So folks, here's the thing. Nobody wants to be estranged from their family. So this morning, I read an interesting article about whether cutting off your family is good therapy. Even as I read it, I knew it would not end well. Some of you, not a lot, but some of you watching this video have gone no contact with your family of origin. Some of you have not. And every encounter you continue to have with your family is abusive and invalidating. And for a range of reasons, you may feel like you can't go no contact. And those of you who do not perceive an issue with your families or actually come from healthy families are probably not watching this video. So to those of you who went no contact, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Was that an easy decision? Did you just go no contact after one argument? Did you go no contact because your family did one thing that hurt your feelings? Did you go no contact just because your parents didn't agree with you? My guess is no, you didn't. You went no contact because of an endless accumulation of wounds, hurts, invalidations, and in some cases, frank abuse and trauma that would be re-experienced every time you were with the narcissistic parent or family system. And ultimately, it became a choice between your identity and mental health and well-being and life, and continuing to see through some kind of obligation or guilt or sense that only people in really bad situations go no contact. To those of you who have not gone no contact, but keep enduring the same abusive patterns, I know the reasons that people stay in these family systems. Some people maintain contact because they feel guilt, obligation, doubt their own perception of the situation, and wonder if maybe they're reading it wrong, or they're being unfair, or they're making too big a deal out of it. Some of you stay in contact with a family because you have financial ties to a family, or because you are interlinked into a family system in which maybe you have children whom you want them to have a relationship with grandparents or extended family, but you still wonder if your parent will do to your kids what they did to you. Some of you have parents who threaten to harm themselves or even harm your other parent if you don't show up, and you can't keep calling 911, so it's just easier to show up. Some of you are still trauma bonded and think that it can still change. Some of you are afraid of the shame and the idea of any kind of no contact, or the idea of estrangement and the shame that estrangement brings up for you, which is incredibly understandable. Some of you would go no contact if you could, and have fantasies of what your life would be like if you did not ever have to deal with your parents again. Unfortunately, the article I read was not as balanced as it could have been, and it sort of simply wrote off the painful decision around estrangement or no contact as almost sort of like an easy way to not have to deal with the family anymore, which I believe missed the point. And then, of course, they interviewed old guard therapists who think it's just so terrible that any therapist would ever encourage a client to go no contact. And by the way, therapists don't encourage no contact. Good therapists understand it and support a client in the client's own decision making. As therapists, we're not supposed to have an agenda, but we're also human beings. And we can witness what having ongoing contact is doing to our clients. Any therapist who is able to remain neutral at witnessing a client be reharmed every single time they have contact with an abusive parent may want to go empathy shop. If it was as simple as don't have an agenda, therapist, then AI is coming for my job really soon, which I think, frankly, it already is. But of course, the pièce de résistance in these articles is the comment section. And here's where that article got really interesting.
Some of the most brilliant minds in business. No, not you.
Most of the commenters were teed up to shame the folks who were estranged from their families and went after the therapists who supported the decision. They'd say things like, family is great. You need family. Go family. Being an adult is about compromise. These darn kids who just go no contact did that because their parent didn't give them their way. My guess is that a fair proportion of these commenters are the parents of the kids that went no contact with, or just the really judgmental chorus of voices that shames anyone who has had to disengage from or distance from a family. The tricky thing with family is that family is about luck, like lots of things in life, but nowhere else is that luck more manifest than family. Some people get really, really lucky. They're born to loving, present, kind, well-regulated, patient people who listen. It doesn't matter if there's money or resource or not. I mean, money helps, but I've known folks raised in families where there were few resources, but there were lovely parents and other adults, and it was an inheritance like no other. And damn, the folks who grew up with resources and have really nice people, I mean, that's Powerball level luck shit. And some kids are born to narcissistic or alcoholic or mean or manipulative or deceitful parents who had no place having kids. These are dysregulated, cruel, withholding, abandoning, put their own needs before their child's needs. Well, that's just bad luck. The child is not responsible for their parents' lack of qualification or capacity to be a parent. It's bad luck. So when folks take the anti-estrangement, you must stay in contact, you only have one family stance, they're basically saying, play the bad hand you were dealt, no matter the harm it does to you. To which I say, F that. Encountering a narcissistic or toxic or harmful relationship in childhood is very different than if it happens to you for the first time in adulthood. And as a result, things that are done to us in adulthood, for example, what we may encounter in a relationship with an intimate partner or a friend, may not do the same level of scathing harm that it does in childhood. The silent treatment, the withholding, that stuff in childhood is lethal. It terrifies the child, who is genuinely afraid that the parents will go away and metaphorically and literally disappear. So the child will do anything to end that silent treatment and slowly then get subjugated into a cycle of being that parent's narcissistic supply, emotional babysitter, tool of regulation, and being the parent's parent. How is that forgivable? All of this shapes the child's identity and frankly thwarts the child's identity that now gets shaped solely around the idea that I have to be what my parent wants so I can be loved, and then ultimately sets a person up for a lifetime of subjugated relationships if the cycle doesn't get broken. And folks, as you know too well, this is not an easy cycle to break. And parents are like kryptonite. You may actually be functioning well in other areas of your life, like work and friends, but then having to see that parent again can lead you to feel like that subjugated and scared child again. And that parent is not going to change. So for some folks, no contact or avoiding contact is the only path forward. Even in the article, there were parents interviewed who felt oh so sad about how much of their adult children's lives that they were missing, graduations and weddings and grandkids, and a small acknowledgement like, yeah, I was an alcoholic, and yeah, I screamed a lot and made the house a scary place, but that was then. Can't they see that I'm trying? It's not a child's job to see that you're trying, whether that child is a child or an adult. That parent has to recognize that we get one chance at childhood, and the harms that are done at that time, well, to some degree are fixable. Those fixes aren't easy, and even with the fixes, those wounds don't ever go fully away. So the adult parent still makes it about themselves. Oh, I'm missing out on so much, and sure, I did a few bad things, rather than my behavior must have been terrifying for a child, and it wasn't okay. Making amends doesn't mean the other person has to accept them. And even the most skilled apology does not carry with it the requirement that the other person has to take it and clean the slate. Perhaps the only way to move forward is to recognize the slate will forever remain messy, and then backing that up with radical acceptance. All of that means that your parent likely will always remain locked into these patterns.
What's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? If you're checking your phone, stop that. Instead, try this technique from the mind science pioneer, Jose Silva. You see, when we're awake, our brain is at what is called theta, the waking level. But when we wake up in the morning, our brain is actually at a different altered state of mind called the alpha frequency. At the alpha frequency, you can command your body to heal itself. At the alpha frequency, you can program your subconscious to remove bad beliefs or even take on new habits. Some even suggest that at alpha, your intuition is stronger. This is the state that
choose accordingly. Many people who are estranged struggle until the end of their parents' lives and beyond. Should I have gone to visit? And then, for those who do go visit, will say, wait, that was a mistake. There are no winners in this. For some folks, the only way to maintain a healthy adult life is to go no contact. And given what we know about any kind of antagonistic or toxic personality style, that makes sense. The parent is not likely to change, and the subjugation cycle will then shift to how selfish and unforgiving that you are, that you can't just let go of the past, Junior, and they were just not ready to be a parent, etc., etc. You know the drill. Listen, I can say this as a therapist. I have worked with many, many clients where in my heart, my hope was that they would go no contact, because I could see how devastated they were every time they had contact with their parents or their family of origin. And they were living their lives in a psychological purgatory with parents who had no capacity for insight. But it wasn't my place to say go no contact. My role was to support their decisions and shore them up for the inevitable disappointment and help them connect the dots. I have also had clients go no contact and doubt that decision every single day. And every so often, there was a client who went no contact and blossomed, and they saw that the going no contact is what contributed to their growth. There is one more twist here. And that is, if you are a parent who is disengaging from a toxic, narcissistic, manipulative, antagonistic child, raises similar issues. Now, if the parent who's disengaging is antagonistic and the child is antagonistic, then all bets are off, and I just hope that nobody really gets hurt. But if the parent who's choosing to disengage is not antagonistic, or perhaps one parent was and the other parent was not, and the non-antagonistic parent is the one who's choosing to disengage, the damage is done where the child's concerned. Some parents, after years of being financially abused, lied to, taken advantage of, raised by their child, will come to this decision as well. Again, it's not easy and even more complex, because a parent making this decision may also reflect back onto what was their contribution on their own child's behavior. Estrangement is like a train depot with lots of lines coming in and out. There's no simple pathway to this. So no, TikTok or YouTube or the internet is not what is leading people to become estranged from their toxic, harmful, invalidating families of origin. It's the family's behavior that's leading to that. Everybody wants to belong to a family system, and nobody gives it up lightly. But for the first time ever, we're having deeper conversations about what the meaning of going no contact from a harmful family system is, the grief around it, but also understanding that in some cases, some people actually find solace in it. And that instead of shaming people who make an incredibly difficult decision, perhaps we all need to pause a moment and really hear their story. And estrangement is a hot topic these days. And again, I was doing some reading on it recently. And in one piece I had read, specifically addressing the issue of no contact and the idea of therapists actually supporting clients in their decision to go no contact. Now, the article was a little misleading because it made it sound as though the therapists were encouraging the clients or the patients to go no contact. But what was happening is that the therapists were saying it's okay to go no contact and that it can help. Estrangement and going no contact, especially family settings, is no joke. It's the DEFCON 1 of solution. It's the tourniquet of first aid approaches. It's the end of the line. I have spoken before on this idea that nobody comes to this decision of estrangement easily. Well, nobody, really, almost nobody does. And unfortunately, what often comes up is that it is perceived that when a person makes a decision to go no contact with a family member or even an entire family, that it was some kind of easy breezy decision that they made. Oh, my family's pushing me off and not giving me my way. I'm going to show them and I'm going to cut them off and not talk to them anymore. There's sort of a spoiled child stigma about people who become estranged from their families, as though people make this monumental decision around estrangement from family members because they just didn't get their way and they're just throwing a massive adult tantrum. Estrangement shaming is pretty common, and as you can imagine, when it comes to narcissistic family systems, it is often a tool, this idea of no contact or estrangement.
Everybody, it's Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi. I have a question for you. If you had to make a choice between having massive impact on people's lives or having real financial freedom, which would you pick? Well, the truth is you don't have to choose because there's an industry that's been growing. It's now $1 billion a day that between the two of us, we've got over 70 years experience in, and that today you can enter in for almost nothing using AI at a speed and a tempo and a level of quality
that works very well. Sadly, it can become the case that ongoing contact with the narcissistic family system can be quite harmful, and that by the time a person goes no contact with a narcissistic family system, that they have suffered and suffered and hoped and tried and had those hopes dashed and tried and blamed themselves, and radical acceptance then often becomes the catalyst to no contact. It is a big decision to make because to go no contact can upend a family system because it is all but impossible to go no contact with just one family member, especially a family that's connected to each other. Oftentimes going no contact means you lose everyone, and not everyone wants that. But the assumption that the person who makes the decision to go no contact is simply a petulant adult baby person is wrong. I've worked with clients in a range of situations. Some of them have gone no contact with selected family members and sometimes with entire family systems for years. And there was grief and a sense of loss, but ultimately a sense of peace. Not one of them regretted it. They definitely regretted that this was their lot, that this was their story. But they didn't regret the decision that they made. Others couldn't go no contact for a range of reasons. Culture, a close attachment to other family members that they would lose if they went no contact with anyone, fear. And they found themselves on a revolving carousel of ongoing abuse that they would often attempt to do workarounds on. None of them came to these decisions lightly. And many of the ones who could not do no contact often wish they could, and recognized very clearly how much easier their lives and how much better their overall health would be if they did not have to maintain contact. Now, obviously, narcissism and other forms of antagonistic personality styles in family members are not the only reason that people go no contact. Some people go no contact because childhood trauma and abuse were denied by family members, or because there is ongoing physical abuse in the family system, or there is financial abuse, or because family members may represent a risk to minor children coming into the system, or there's unresolved substance use or an addiction, or there's violence and aggression. And these all may be patterns that are denied or enabled by other family members, simply making the family of origin too dangerous. As I have also said before, the estrangement that people may find themselves in and the no contact they may decide for when they have a narcissistic family system is not the same as the silent treatment or passive aggression and withholding that a narcissistic person may engage in to punish other people. Basically with the goal of forcing other people to apologize even when the other people have done nothing wrong, to break the silence and to break the no contact. That's not what I'm talking about here.
Excuse me, have you heard of this company?
Yes, I've seen you guys on the street before.
We are going to...
Estrangement,
Sorry.
or I should say the shaming of estrangement and no contact. That's not going anywhere. And what that means is that if you make a decision to go no contact, I know it is or was a painful and difficult decision, and there's a lot of hurt on the path to getting there. However, do not think that all people can hear about your no contact or your estrangement with an open and wise ear. You have to be discerning in how you share it, or the shaming and the negating can be too painful, and it can set your healing back. Some of you may not give a damn what other people think, which is great. However, others of you may still feel that this is new and you're not ready to face the judgment of others around something that's this raw and this vulnerable. Perhaps you never will be. So be careful, because you would be surprised at how often people will treat something as heavy as going no contact with a narcissistic family system as though it is just a silly conflict that could be figured out with some forgiveness and talking it through. Discernment ultimately means figuring out who your safe people are. But the big piece to remember, whether someone is telling you about going no contact with family or estrangement from a family or you're going through it, is that it's not easy. This is not a tantrum about not getting your way. It's a huge decision that while it can often take many people to a much better place, it's never easy. And it's one that can take people a long time to get to. It takes as long as it takes. I want to throw in one last piece here, which is that we often treat estrangement and no contact as a forever kind of a situation. Some people need time down. What we talk a lot about when we're talking about what happens in especially narcissistic family systems is the fancy word for it is a loss of subjectivity. Basically, you lose your sense of self. You lose your identity. You don't even know who your authentic self is. And as long as you're in that family, you have to sort of fit you have to fit your square peg into their round hole kind of thing. And that the only way to really find yourself is to separate out from that system for some period of time. For some people, that's a couple of years. For some people, that's a decade or longer. And at the end of that time, sometimes there's an event, a catalyzing event. It could be a death. It could be an illness. It could be a coincidence. And there may be an event that puts you back in the fold with that family. And in some cases, you may find that now that you're fully possessed of who you are, what you're about, that you can stand strong in the face of it and give yourself permission to step away, that some people may find that there's an opportunity for repair where others will say, this will always and forever be a traumatizing system. So I think one of the other misperceptions we make about estrangement and going no contact is that this is a permanent decision. In some cases it is, and in some cases it's not. But I think that the piece you need to address is not get yourself caught up in what's going to happen down the line, but what is the right decision for you now, and what is going to facilitate your healing, your mental health, your growth.
It's here. Wayfair's Big Victoria Day clearance is on now. Right now through May 27th, get up to 70% off everything home. It's the talk of
that relief and light. How are we as Canadians to hold your government accountable for what you're promising if you're not going to be transparent about it for 6 months or so?
So the liberal Chihuahua steps into the octagon with Vashi. Now, on the surface, you might think, oh, okay, it's going to be another cookie cutter thing where Vashi doesn't really push back, and all of a sudden the liberals get to walk away feeling like they're winners in this debate or interview.
Journalist.
But that's not the
Not
case
good
at
at
all.
it.
In fact, it's kind of the opposite. Vashi does what I could only kind of dream of doing. To a politician's face, fact check them in real time and absolutely humiliate them. It's quite the reversal in what we've seen. We've seen little tidbits of Vashi act like this in these one-on-one interviews. But now that the election is over, there's no swaying anyone's vote one way or the other. So she's a loose cannon, and I appreciate it. I also think it's a little disingenuous to be this
Like, what are you talking about? She's a loose cannon. No, she's not.
The country needed you to do this, do your job
Useless.
during the election, but it is what it is. We're not going to live too much in the past, but I do want to focus on how kind of badass this interview really is. So before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get right into it.
There were a lot of questions to you today outside of cabinet about whether there's going to be a budget or not.
Right.
I want to ask you explicitly, will there be an actual budget in 2025?
There will be a fall economic statement when we're coming back. And what I said is that we need to go in the order, the logical order. So you just said it very well. This is a flagship promise from the Prime Minister. So the first assignment, the first thing coming out of the first cabinet meeting is the middle class tax cut. This is going to affect 22 million families or 22 million people in this country. This is very significant. And this is the first thing we're going to be doing. The second thing, you have a throne speech because we just started the legislature, so we need to do that. And when we're coming back in the fall, there'll be a substantive fall economic statement where we're going to take into account of what has happened and provide clarity, transparency to Canadian. And I've said it again when I was doing that. I want to be prudent. I want to provide stability, predictability. And you would agree with me, we live in a very unpredictable world in terms of the macroeconomic picture we're having. Next week, I'm going to be hosting the G7 finance minister with the central bank governors. We're going to try to look into that a bit. So by then, we'll have a better understanding of these macro trends that could have an impact on the Canadian economy. But in the meantime, we're going to do what matters to Canadians, reduce their taxes, have the throne speech, and then when we're back, we'll have the fall economic statement.
That's a whole lot of bullshit. Are you seeing Vashi's face? It's like Champagne farted, and Vashi knows that he farted, but she doesn't want to say nothing. It's, ugh. You know what? You know what would make this so poetic?
Fucking reporter.
Even though she's not the finance minister, if Mark Carney says, you know what, Freeland, I'm the godparent to your child. Why don't you deliver economic statement? Because for those who don't have any context, she was supposed to deliver last year and refused, and then resigned. And then that was the collapse of Trudeau's government. So it's funny. It's funny if you're paying attention. I think that was a whole lot of nonsense. And we're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, it's a new prime minister with a semi-new cabinet, and it's a whole new liberal party. Not really. They're like, hey, look, we're not as woke and progressive as Trudeau. We're still a little bit woke and progressive. Let's just ignore that. Let's get things done. Nothing's going to get done. Well, I mean, things are going to get done, but it won't necessarily be good for the country. This is scary. This is scary because you're seeing an opportunity for liberals to completely be different people. Completely. Like, they should have all had hired speak coaches. Is that even a thing? Is that even a term? A speech therapist. And they should have just completely rewritten the rule book on how each of them talk and just been completely new people. Or they could have hired new people, but obviously that didn't really happen. If they just changed themselves fully, like face and name, which is hard to do, but at least the way they talk and think, that might have been better. But no, it's the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm sitting here watching this and going, oh, man, this sucks. Like, this sucks.
Are you sure, though, with all due respect, Mr., that Canadians had the impression that transparency and clarity would be delayed until the fall? I think the Prime Minister in particular campaigned on being straight with Canadians about how all of the stuff he is promising to do would actually unfold. And there are big questions. For example, your platform didn't even include the potential impact of, or the economic impact of, a trade war with the United States, some of which we're already feeling. You've made very specific promises on the spending side, for example, around government operations that don't appear to add up by any outside analysis I've seen. Like, don't Canadians deserve to know sooner rather than later how you're going to do what you said you're going to do?
You got to give it to her. You got to give it to Vashi. She's doing a pretty decent job.
Oh my God, she did a good job once.
She's absolutely correct. Keep campaigning on transparency and delivering really goodies to Canadians. Well, we want our goodies. It's time to pay the piper. Let's go. Let's see the budget. We don't want to wait till the fall. We want to see it right now. Maybe this is going to add social pressure. Maybe now that Vashi's pushing on it, maybe Mark Carney goes, you know what? You're right. Let's release it now. Who knows? I mean, he's a new dog with new tricks, right? We don't know what Carney's actually going to do. That's a really good point. And I really appreciate the media actually pushing back on this stuff. It feels like they could have done it a little earlier, especially during, the actual election. That would have been very helpful, but at least we're getting it now.
Again, like I said, the first order of business, reduce tax for Canadians. That's the first order of business. And like you said, passing that to Parliament before recess is already something we'll have to work with other party to make sure that we have. But I say we have received a mandate from Canadians to be bold to act for them, and I'm sure parliamentarians will take that into account because this is having the back of Canadians at the time, which is difficult for them. Affordability is the first thing that Canadians have been talking to us, apart from the tariff war with the United States. And what I'm saying is that you need a throne speech. And they're the
throne speech.
What is it? We've been telling Canadians.
Throne. How hard is it?
Very simple. We're going to fight the tariffs from the United States. We're going to grow the Canadian economy in one economy. We're going to diversify our economy. We're going to invest in our military. We're going to invest in infrastructure. We're going to invest in housing. So the frame and the priorities that have been set are going to be the same. What we're saying is that you need to go in logical order. The first thing is that you need to have the tax cut for the middle class. That's the first thing we promise and we deliver.
The second thing, control speech to set the priorities. That's how our parliamentary system works. And then when you're back, you have the fall economic statement, which is going to be substantive. So you're going to provide a picture with more certainty, more transparency. And I've said to the folks, I want to be very prudent. You know, this is going to be the hallmark of this government. We're going to be prudent because by then we'll have the better assessment
Like, am I having a
of all
stroke?
these
That's really
external
cool.
risks that we need to take into account to provide the best picture to Canadians.
Just heard me
So
say that.
we see the fiscal framework under which we're operating. But the priorities that the Prime Minister has said will remain the same. So that's why I'm saying we've been engaging with Canadians across this nation for weeks and not months on that. So they know what we intend to do, how we intend to do. And now they're seeing how fast we can do that.
But I think that the missing piece of that puzzle is, will you actually do it, and how are you going to pay for it? And the reason so for example, for the fall economic statement, I take your point that it's going to be more thorough. But I remember your predecessor, Christian Freeland, instructing us many times, this is not a mini budget. This is just an update on where finances are concerned.
I knew it. I knew that she wasn't as dumb as what we thought she was. But it kind of disappoints me that you're seeing this amount of pushback after the election. It's almost like they wanted Carney to win, and now they're just doing Vashi and CTV's just free to do whatever they want. I wish it was different. We can't live in the past. So I'm only going to talk henceforth as what's going on now. And right now, I'm just a little upset with the election. But no, in all seriousness, I think that what Vashi is doing and trying to get across is you can't wait. You can't think up. You can't wait on something. People deserve to know who you are, what you're made of, what your team's actually planning on doing, and how much it's going to cost people. You deserve to know that right away. We don't want to give them time to fudge the numbers and move things around. We burn you or whatever the heck you plans on doing. We want it all right now, and I think that we deserve it. It's been so long since we've had a previous update of any sorts. Think about it. The government actually hasn't been in session since like the middle-ish of December, the 17th to 16th of December, something like that. That's craziness. That's crazy. That's almost half the year's gone by. I would freaking like to have some sort of updates as to where our money's going. And I don't want to wait till the fall to hear.
And I'll point to, for example, other things that have happened with your government in the past where you've made a promise to cut consultants and instead the spending on consultants has gone up 13%. Like, how are we as Canadians to hold your government accountable for what you're promising if you're not going to be transparent about it for 6 months or so? And I take your point about the timeline. Throne speech. There's still another month.
And I would say this is a new government. So let's start. If we're going to start, this is a new government, new legislature, new prime minister. So the direction is very clear. He's been.
But you're still the finance minister.
Yeah, I'm still a finance minister, and I would say the world has changed also in 6 weeks. So Canadians understand that. And my objective to them is to provide them the best picture of the financial account of Canada. To be prudent. I mean, you'll hear me use that word more and more. Prudency in the very is that you take as much information as you have to make sure you provide them with the best possible picture. That's why I said we're going to come back in the fall. We're going to be in a position to provide them with a fiscal update, which are going to be substantive. And like I said, there will be no surprises because the way normally I would agree with you that, the calendar year is slightly different this year because we have an election in April. And that changed a bit the calendar of how things normally happen in Canada. But what I'm saying is that first you need to provide the tax break to the Canadians, then the Throne speech, then you have a substantive fall economic statement, so you have a clearer picture of the finance. But what I'm saying is that there will be no surprises in that because we have already outlined it pretty much details during the campaign, exactly how we're going to do it, and we're going to reduce the operational spending. We went from 9% to 2%. We're going to say then we can invest more. So don't spend less, invest more. I mean, those are the type of things you'll see, but at that time we'll be in a position to provide.
Again, I have to respectfully challenge how transparent you were during the campaign. And I would highlight 2 things there. The first being that spending from going down from 9 to 2%. Yes, you've outlined how much less you're going to spend, but the math isn't made clear. You're going to cap the public service. I don't know if that means the number of public servants or the $65 billion a year payroll. If you factor in just attrition, that's only saving $1 billion a year. You said you're going to get to savings of $15 billion a year through the efficiencies through cutting down on consultants. Again, like there are no specifics attached to that.
Well, I
So,
would say what
and
you
then
just
even,
said is
but I, just really quickly, I would also add when it comes to the economic impact of the trade war, that was not factored into your costing for me at all during the campaign. That's not radical transparency.
Smokes, what happened to Vashi? This is what I would like to see. Every single time I turn on CTV, this is going to bring in more viewers. This is going to educate people. This is what the media should be about. Pushing back on politicians' promises and their campaigns and saying, well, hold on here, I'm going to fact check you in real life. You said you did. You said you were going to do.
Fucking useless human being. Fucking. Oh my god, Vashi Capellas did her job once. It's amazing.
Whiskey. You're at least a foot of distance.
Sounds like white noise from fans.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Phone is upstairs. Charger. Oh, look at my door. Okay. The pee. Why are you? Let's see. Top 3. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. 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 Go. Wait. What? My fingers are fucked up. I can't do it today. Ow. I can't even open the back of my computer. Fucking my kickstand. Andrew. I have to go check his pill.